England, a country known for many things such as fish and chips, knife crime, and its men's national team underachieving at major tournaments. And with the Three Lions winning a grand total of one World Cup in 74 years, England are a nation accustomed to losing, with the general public suffering footballing heartbreak every 2 years. And the English have only ever reached 3 finals in their history, and 2 of those 3 finals have come in the last 3 tournaments with Gareth Southgate at the wheel. But despite the fact he's reached 2 finals in his last 3 tournaments, why has Southgate's time as England manager left the England fans so divided? Well, today we'll be evaluating Southgate's career as England manager now that it's all been said and done. But before we go any further, please do like this video and comment down below your thoughts on Southgate's time as England boss and who you think the FA should hire to replace him. And also subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. We're literally 2 subscribers away from 400 subscribers. Your support means a lot, so please do subscribe to the channel, especially if my videos continue to come up in your recommended. And also, if this is the first video one you're watching, check out the rest of the videos on the channel by clicking the channel button down below, or just check out my last video where I discussed how Rodri is the best player in the world. But without any further ado, let's get into today's video where we look at the story of England's most successful loser. Despite being home to the biggest and best league in the world, England always struggled to make a decent account for themselves in international tournaments, and things would reach an extreme low point under Steve McClaren in 2007 after failing to qualify for Euro 2008, and things would also be bad under Roy Hodgson between World Cup 2014 and Euro 2016, with the Three Lions finishing rock bottom of a fairly average group in 2014, and then scraping through a very poor group, finishing second behind Wales, just to be dumped out in the round of 16 by a nation making their major tournament debut. Finishing second behind Wales, getting knocked out to Iceland, and having Harry Kane as the main corner taker was enough to see Roy lose his job. And one huge footballing scandal later, the England job would end up on Gareth Southgate's doorstep. And this would be the beginning of an era of hope and optimism, because taking over from the disasters that were Roy Hodgson and Sam Allardyce's England careers would be no easy job, and it was time to see if Southgate had what it takes. A lot of people, me included, would think that it probably was a bit of a mistake to promote the under-21s manager and make him head coach of the senior team. But there weren't many other options, and realistically things couldn't get much worse after the things we saw in the last 2 tournaments, and no one could leave as disgraced as Allardyce did, only managing 1 game for England as a senior manager, not just a caretaker manager. But we would come into World Cup 2018 in Russia, and there weren't huge expectations around the team. Yes, we did have an easy-ish group with Panama, Tunisia and Belgium, obviously with Belgium being one of the best teams in the world, but a comfortable second was on the cards there for England to make out of the group, which would have definitely been an improvement after the previous World Cup obviously finishing rock bottom. But so with there not being very much expectation, and the squad wasn't really the greatest, like there were definitely some exceptional players in the squad, but it wasn't as good as some of the teams you might have seen in 2014, 2010, 04 and times like this. Like, it was not the best England squad that you would ever see. With an inexperienced manager, things weren't looking to be for England to have an outstanding tournament, but all we wanted was an improvement from World Cup 2014 and Euro 2016. That's all that Southgate needed to provide a bit of stability, and he was basically just coming to be a stopgap solution until we could identify someone better for the job. But that's not exactly what happened. The Southgate World Cup 2018 is, I compare to Solskjaer when he first took over at United with the caretaker manager job. He was only meant to be a temporary solution to a long-term problem, but because he performed so well in his little audition, they decided, well, we might as well keep him. Obviously, look at the PSG game that Man United won late on under Ole, getting him the job. Was it the right decision to give him the job? Long term, probably not. Short term, you couldn't really argue with him getting the job. And that was kind of the same with Southgate staying after World Cup 2018 because, there wasn't a huge expectation on the team. But you get there, you scrape through your first game with a 2-1 win, not playing convincing football, absolutely dominate Panama in a high scoring win, and lose 1-0 to Belgium, giving us second place in the group and being on the easier side of the draw. Things were looking decent. We had a decent run to the final. Whether we were going to make it there, different story. Play out a 1-1 draw to Colombia, taking things to penalties. England on penalties. Never been good, right? England had won I want to say one penalty shootout in, I want to say 4 before Southgate, something like that, right? And they'd only won 1. England, penalty heartbreak. Southgate knew firsthand about penalty heartbreak for England, obviously missing his penalty at Euro 96. Right, so the boys step up, and who misses first? England. Jordan Henderson misses, and everyone thinks, well, we're done. Out in the round of 16, even when we had a decent run at the final. Typical England. New manager, same problem. But Colombia would miss. Trippier could draw us level. He does draw us level. And then Pickford makes a great save, leaving Dyer to stroke the ball into the back of the net for England to win just their second penalty shootout at a major tournament. Southgate had done the impossible. He'd won a penalty shootout with England at a major tournament, right? The almost impossible. So no matter what happened in the next game, he exceeded expectations. Got further than Roy did in, both of the last 2 tournaments, at equaling his best run, obviously at Euro 2012 in the quarterfinals. So England make it to the quarterfinals. They've won on penalties. Southgate, Jordan Pickford, Eric Dyer, all heroes. And then England beat Sweden 2-0 in a convincing win, and the semi-finals against Croatia are there. England are in the semi-finals of the World Cup with a not great manager and a not great squad. The country's morale was through the roof. It was so high. You'd never seen, in my lifetime, I'd never seen people so positive about an England game, an England tournament. No one had anything bad to say about any of the players because all of these players were playing for the badge, playing for the country. And then Trippier took that free kick, put it in the back of the net, and England took the lead early on, and it was coming. At that point, it was coming home. England were in the World Cup final. Obviously, that game did not plan out to perfection, and it ended up with Croatia equalising and then going on to score a winner late on. And England were just out on their feet in extra time. They just couldn't get anywhere near the box, anywhere near creating chance because they were so tired. But England were knocked out in the semi-final. But no one was upset. No one was angry. People were disappointed at the fact that we couldn't make the final. But no one was angry. No one was using scapegoats. No one was blaming anyone. Everyone was just proud of the team for what they did. And people were excited for the future under Southgate. And as they should be, because that was some of the best football, some of the best results England fans have seen in international football for a long, long time. And, 3 years later, they would find themselves at Euro 2020, with obviously it being postponed a year because of COVID and it being played in 2021. England would find themselves in a group with Croatia, who would be their opening fixture, looking to get revenge for that semi-final defeat in the last World Cup, like I just mentioned. And they'd also have Scotland, UK rival Scotland, in the group, very similar to the previous Euros where they had Wales in their group. And the final team would be the Czech Republic. A relatively decent draw and games that England should be winning. And after a 1-0 win to Croatia, with Sterling scoring his first goal at a major tournament for England, things looked in motion for Southgate's team. They might not have played the best football, but they got a win. Something that wasn't really seen before with England. If they weren't playing good football, then they were getting dominated and they would lose. And then the mood would change a little bit after a shocking display in a 0-0 draw against Scotland, against a team that aren't very good. they weren't very good. There wasn't much talent on the pitch, and England, with just the sheer number of world-class players in the team, should have walked that game easy. But it was a 0-0 draw. And people were very disappointed with how Southgate managed the team, set up the team, and how the team played. Especially in such a big game that means a lot to both countries. You should have went out there and made a statement. They didn't. But it was fine because Sterling would score in a 1-0 win again against the Czech Republic to send England through with 7 points, right? Easy. Only issue is the team waiting for them in the round of 16 was their nemesis, England's nemesis in not just international football, but in a lot of political things that we won't go into. But Germany were there, right? And we saw what happened in 2010. So people were nervous. It was probably the first time that Southgate had to come up against a good team since the third place match and the group games with Belgium, right? This was the second best team that Southgate ever had to come up against. And well, it was some of the best football that England fans would see under Southgate, because England would win 2-0 and they played very well. It was one of the best games under Southgate I saw. Sterling obviously scored, Kane scored, Muller missed that chance 1-on-1 with Pickford. It was a good game. It was a good England performance. England deserved to win. You can't always say that with their games under Southgate, but they deserved to win, and they did win. Which obviously puts them in the quarterfinals against Ukraine. And that one is an easy game. A lot like a lot of the group games. This was one of those games where England, it should just be a walk in the park. A lot easier than the team that they basically made light work of in the quarterfinals, right? And England wouldn't make the same mistake that they made in the group. They went out there, scored goals, won 4-0. That puts them in the semi-finals, back-to-back semi-finals in major tournaments. Can anyone complain? No, not really. Obviously, the cracks starting to show in Southgate's game, especially with how he managed the Scotland game and potentially how he managed all the group games anyway, being a little too conservative and probably should go for the kill a little bit more, right? But they're only cracks. No one's really complaining because we're in a second semi-final in 2 tournaments, right? No one cares. England go 1-0 down after a brilliant Damsgaard free kick, and everyone's like, okay, back down to earth, we're not coming back from this. England don't come from behind. But after Saka and Sterling force an own goal from the Danish, the game opens back up, and it's taken to extra time, where Harry Kane would get a penalty because Sterling would be brought down in the box and Harry Kane would get a penalty, his bread and butter. But he did have to face one of the world's best goalkeepers at the time, Kasper Schmeichel. And as Kane stepped up to take the penalty, unfortunately it was saved by Schmeichel. But it didn't matter because Kane was able to smash in the rebound, and as things stood, England were about to make their second ever major tournament final. And they were able to see out this win, this 2-1 win in extra time, to take them to the final, which will be played at Wembley, the big main international stadium in England of all places, where they would face Italy, Roberto Mancini's Italy, which were basically seen as the favourites the whole tournament. From day one, Italy played day one, first match day one. From that day until the final, they were favourites. Played some of the best football, had one of the best teams, had one of the best managers. Basically, all round the best team, and that's the reason they were favourites. But England, on home soil, and making just their second major tournament final appearance, which was coincidentally the last one, played on home soil, where they won the World Cup. So, Southgate could be the second ever English manager to win a major tournament and the first ever English manager to win the Euros. And things looked even more likely within 3 minutes when Luke Shaw hammered home an absolute stunning volley near post past Donnarumma, and things were looking great. But as the game went on, England created less and less chances and sat further and further back, inviting more and more Italian pressure onto them. And finally they cracked from a set piece where Bonucci would score from a corner from close range, and after that England didn't look like scoring a goal at all. England didn't look like scoring a goal after Luke Shaw's goal. Southgate's whole plan was to sit on that 1-0 lead, and as soon as that 1-0 lead left, it was okay, we play for penalties. Fine, we get to penalties. Jordan Pickford makes the first save. Harry Maguire puts us in front, and then unfortunately Rashford did not have the ability to be able to further our lead, but it was fine. We were still in the lead. Well, no, we were drawing even, should I say. We were drawing. Oh, we were still in the shootout. And then Sancho steps up in the next penalty. Misses. Then Italy had the lead. But Pickford was able to save Jorginho's penalty. So England had a lifeline. But Bukayo Saka would miss. England would miss 3 in a row. And they would be runners-up. And, you know, it was safe to say a lot of people were disappointed. They were disappointed with the performance, disappointed to lose on home soil. But people were still proud of the team for being able to make a final, right? It was something that we haven't done in any of our lifetimes, right? And everybody was proud of the team. Yes, there were some question marks on Southgate's game management and how he saw out the games in the tournament, especially the final and the Scotland game were the two major question marks put on Southgate as a manager. But these talking points weren't really discussed as much, but later on they would become a huge talking point. And these sort of games there'd be a lot of revision around these games and a lot of them changed narratives. Of course, everybody at the time was disappointed that Southgate lost the final, but the way the narrative's been spun as his career went on was definitely not true. He definitely should have played better in the final, and we should have definitely won given the fact we led for so long. But you can't really blame him for losing to such a good Italy side. But at the same time, it's one of those, in the position we're in, when you take the lead, you just have to see it out. But you can't just rely on a 1-goal lead. You have to try double your lead. But you can still play conservatively, but you've still got to go for another goal, and that's what England didn't do, and that's why the game went to penalties, and that's why England lost. But you know, we had the World Cup coming up next year, right? There was time to bounce back. We had a Winter World Cup in Qatar, and well, it started off a lot better. The first game against Iran, it was a very, very good game. Very good game. England looked to be back, full of life. And then the exact same thing happened in the Euros. Absolute boring stalemate against the USA. And you just think, he can't be doing this again. He really hasn't learned his lesson. At some point, you've got to realise that playing that sort of football and not going for the win against these lesser teams can cost you. Because no offence to the US, but they're just not a great footballing nation, and England should be walking all over them every day of the week. But England would bounce back, final game of the group, beating Wales 3-0, with Rashford scoring twice and Foden scoring, to dump Wales out of their first World Cup. You know, it was a fun little watch. But it did put England in the round of 16, where they would face Senegal. And they would dispatch of Senegal quite well, and England looked to be playing good. England looked great. And then we had to play the world champions. The previous World Cup winners, we had to play France. And France didn't look great. France weren't great. So France were there for the taking. But after they went 1-0 down, England went 1-0 down, you know, they kind of looked like they wanted to score a bit more. But the hunger should have definitely been there from kickoff. England looked to only want to score after going 1-0 down, and that was a problem. They were able to equalise for a Harry Kane penalty, and he was able to draw the team level. But the exact same thing happened. As soon as England were level, they didn't look to want to score. They just looked to pay for extra time, pay for penalties, sit back, play a bit more reserved. And then bam, fails to clear a corner properly. The ball ends up back in the box. Giroud scores 2-1. England get a penalty again though, because they're actually attacking, trying to make things happen. Unfortunately, this time Harry Kane blazes the penalty over the bar. One of the worst penalties I've seen. It was absolutely a horrific penalty. And unfortunately, England would come close with a Rashford free kick and a few other chances, but England would be dumped out of the World Cup there. And this is where the real question marks about Southgate would come around, because his conservative football was really starting to show, and the cracks were really starting to show. with this football, because of course you'd want to play conservative football with the squad that you had in 2018. You didn't have the most technically gifted players, but when you actually look at the squad that he took into the 2022 World Cup, Bukayo Saka, Phil Foden, Marcus Rashford, Jack Grealish, Jude Bellingham, like, these are exceptional players with exceptional technical ability, and you know, they can take the game to teams. They can go man for man with any player on this earth. So there's no need to rely on your defense all the time to, you know, just survive on a 1-0 win, because these players can go out and score goals. And it was proven in some of the games, but Southgate doesn't set his team up that way. And, you know, this is when I started to have my doubts about Southgate. And then you'd see the lead up to the Euros, the friendly games, the performances were getting worse and worse. And we'd find ourselves just before the Euros, and I'm thinking, things aren't looking great here. I can't see us going very far. I just don't think Gareth knows what to do with the players at his disposal, with players of this quality. Because he can't shoehorn, he tries to shoehorn them all in, and it just doesn't work. There's no shape, these players can't play these positions. They're just there because they're good at football, not because they can play that position. And tactics just sort of went out the window, and that was seen in the group in the Euros. Don't get me wrong, right? The first game was poor. The first game was poor. Obviously, Jude scored the header against Serbia. You know, Serbia did pressure a little bit, but they didn't play good football, and England didn't look great. But just because of a moment of brilliance from Bellingham, England won. 1-1 to Denmark, because as soon as England went 1-0 up, they decided they didn't need to score again, same as they did against Serbia. And bam, Denmark took their one chance, scored 1-1, no other way back. Final group game, 0-0. England just didn't look like they wanted to do anything. And, you know, almost cost us first place in the group. Round of 16. Spend basically the whole game playing the worst football I've ever seen, and get saved by a Bellingham overhead kick and a Kane winner in extra time to send us to the quarterfinals, where we would definitely look a lot better against Switzerland, but again, going 1-0 down and only looking really like we wanted to score after going 1-0 down. Saka equalises, takes the game to penalties. All of our players take exceptional penalties, and Pickford makes a great save against Akanji to put England in the semis. England go 1-0 down early on against the Netherlands, but then come out and look like they want to play football, play some of the best football I've seen them play against Southgate. Get a dubious penalty, which probably shouldn't have been a penalty, from a Dumfries foul on Kane. Kane dispatches the penalty, no problems. England keep going, and then have a bit of a funny 5 minutes towards the end of the game where Netherlands looked like they were going to take the game, but England held on. Palmer finds Watkins turns in the box, and it's an excellent finish, and he sends England to a back-to-back Euros final. And I believed after that semi-final, because England played such good football. This was probably the best football I've seen them play since the Germany game, right? And Netherlands aren't a bad team, so it was definitely a turning point. But once again, Southgate had to face the best team in the tournament, favourites from day one, the best team, the most well-oiled team, the favourites, team that looked like they could just walk all over anyone. And well, England get to that final and they show no fight. They show no fight. They show no desire. It was a boring first half, and then you get to the second half. Spain score early on, and then England again playing catch up, and then they start looking dangerous again while playing catch up. Palmer scores an exceptional goal, makes it 1-1. The game is on there. The game is there for the taking, right? The momentum was with us. What do? Slow the game down. Start playing, passing around the back. Don't make any probing passes. And then bam, Spain hit us on one attack, get a nice ball across the box, making the most of Walker being out of position. It's tapped in, 2-1. Spain win the game, Spain win the Euros. And Southgate leaves his post as England manager just 2-3 days later, and I can't blame him, honestly, because yes, he gave us some of the best memories we have seen in our in our lifetimes, right? But he didn't win anything. And that's why I call him England's most successful loser. Because he did something that no other English manager could do, and that was make a Euros final, a European final. He made back-to-back European finals, right? Made the most final appearances of any England manager. But he didn't win anything. He was able to play bad football and still win and get results. Something no other England manager could do. But he still played bad football and he didn't win any trophies. So I thank Southgate for all of the memories that he gave us, because it was honestly, some of the journeys we went on in those tournaments were special. And I remember where I was for a lot of those games and how I celebrated those games for the rest of my life. But losing back-to-back finals in a competition is unacceptable. We should have learned from the first time, and we didn't. And we let the same thing happen. And it is just, Southgate was the man to get us to this point. Get us through that hard time between Hodgson, Allardyce and now, right? He was the man to steady the ship. The ship is steadied. We've got some seasoned players that are still young in this team to take us into the next World Cup under a new manager. And yes, the expectations for this new manager are going to be high, because Southgate has taken us to places we haven't been in a very, very long time. But we needed a change. And it is harsh to say with, you know, how well he did in some of these tournaments, but he always fell short. And Southgate was never a winner, and that's the problem. He could have all of these great cup runs, but he never had the killer instinct to go and win the tournament. And that is exactly why he is England's most successful loser. But, you know, with that all being said, let me know what you thought of Southgate's time as England manager, because, you know, I like Southgate as a person, as a man, as what he's shown the public, and being able to give us these experiences and the way he talks. I like Southgate as a person, but as a manager, I don't think he's that good, like tactically anyway. And I think it was definitely time for us to move on, and I'm excited to see who the next manager will be and what they'll be able to do with this squad, because we have an exciting squad of players, and I didn't want it to be wasted with Southgate's negative style of football. But, you know, with all that being said, let me know what you thought of the video down below. Again, like the video if you enjoyed, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, because, you know, like I said again, close to 400 subscribers. The channel keeps continuing to grow, and it's all thanks to your guys' support, so thank you all so much. Check out the rest of the videos on the channel that are going to be linked literally just after I finish this sentence. If you haven't already, again, might make you want to subscribe even more when you've watched some more videos, some more of my videos even. With all that being said, I've been Nathan. I'll see you in the next one. Peace.
Shut down cases, they belly dots to the can't see faces. Chasing the bad guy chase it. You don't wanna be the one like Ace and like G-Takes and turn them out wasted. Aye, tell her bad bitch come break it. Body come mad, come shake it. Then get back to the basics. Bro, done shut down cases. They belly dots to the